All right, today we're going to discuss capacity and describing how capacity relates to milliliters and liters, and a little bit about estimating for capacity. So when you fill a container with liquid to find out how much it holds, what you are measuring is capacity. So capacity has to do with how much liquid a container will hold. This carton right here, orange carton, milk carton, has a capacity of 1 liter. This is the smaller carton. We also have cartons that have 2 liters, and the big jugs are 4 liters. So we're going to talk about a 1 liter carton. That's a small one. It usually holds about 4 glasses. So 4 smaller glasses would be a good referent. Now, not wonderful because the kinds of glasses that we all use are not necessarily a standard size. The glasses that you use at home might be fairly large. The glasses that another person might use might be fairly small. So glasses are not a very good referent. And remember, a referent is something that we can use to estimate. So something that is about the same size as the actual. So we're going to talk a little bit more in a little bit about what might be a good referent for a liter. Some things that you might measure in liters. Chocolate, ice cream, any kind of ice cream is measured in liters. Ketchup or condiments is often measured in liters. Drinks are measured in liters. The amount of oil is measured in liters. Those are generally the things that we would use for liters. As for reference, here this gentleman is saying that he uses a 1 liter milk carton as a referent. And he's estimating that this bowl that he's holding would hold about 4 liters. And a 1 liter milk carton is a very good referent for a liter. Sometimes we're not often using a 1 liter milk carton, so perhaps you're going to think of it as half of a 2 liter milk carton. So part of this has to do with liters, kiloliters, and milliliters. Those are the most commonly used units. Liters, kiloliters are very large, and milliliters, which are quite small. A liter, as we already talked about, is about the size of a 1 liter milk carton. That's 1 liter. A milliliter is about the size of one of our little yellow cubes for place value, the ones cube. If we were to fill that with water, that would be about 1 milliliter worth of water. And a kiloliter is fairly large. When we are changing units, remember, we can use a couple of things. We can know the rhyme that you are fairly familiar with. Remember, it's just the same, except now we've taken each meter and replaced it with liter in each one of these. So hectoliter, kiloliter, decaliter, liter, deciliter, centiliter, milliliter, exactly the same as millimeters, centimeters, decimeters, except we've replaced the meters. So if I were trying to find out how many liters in a kiloliter, for 4,000 liters into kiloliters, I would jump 1, 2, 3 in this direction. So 4,000, remember this is just a comma there. So our decimal is after the ones place, which would be here. We're going 1, 2, 3 jumps in this direction. 4,000 liters would be like 4 kiloliters. So really, 1,000 liters equal 1 kiloliter, if you are a person who likes to memorize. Milliliters to liters. Here we've got 51,000 milliliters, and we're going to liters. It's going to be 1, 2, 3 jumps in this direction. 51,000. Decimal is here because this 0 is in the ones place. We're going to make 1, 2, 3 jumps. Our new decimal is here, so it would be 51. So again, there are 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. Milliliters to kiloliters then is going to be a big jump. It's going to be 2 groups of the others, so it's going to actually be 6 jumps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 jumps, so would equal 5 kiloliters. All right, we've discussed a little bit the reference already for a liter. Now we'll talk a little bit about a milliliter. The milliliter is the smallest unit of capacity. An eyedropper has a capacity of 1 milliliter, so an eyedropper that you might use for medication, for example. It holds about 10 drops, so about 10 drops would be 1 milliliter. As well, we talked about the centimeter cube, you know, those little ones cubes that we have for place value. If you were to empty it and fill it with liquid, it would hold approximately 1 milliliter. So it's a very good referent to estimate the capacity of a milliliter. And as we already talked about for reference for a liter, a really good referent for a liter would be a 1 liter carton or half of a 2 liter carton if that's what you're more familiar with. But that is a pretty standard measure for a liter. You don't really want to talk again about something that you happen to have at home, like my juice container at home, because it's not standard. Not everybody's going to know what size your juice container at home is. So it's better to pick something standard that everybody has exposure to and that is the same size regardless of where it is. So here, for example, if we were trying to find out capacity of a 1 liter jug, and we had these jugs that measure approximately, or no, do actually measure 500 milliliters, we could know that 2 of those would need to fill 1 liter because there are 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. 1 liter is equal to 1,000 milliliters. All right, so now we want to choose an appropriate non-standard unit for measuring the capacity of these containers. So what would you use? And we've already talked about reference for a milliliter being the little centiliter cube or centimeter cube, and the referent for a liter being a 1 liter carton. So if you were to look at a rain bucket, what would you choose? Which referent would you use? Press pause and go ahead and try these. All right, so if we were going to be looking at a rain bucket would probably be something that a person leaves outside to fill with water to water your plants, for example. This one doesn't look too large, but it still does look like it would be more than a liter, so I would probably use a 1 liter carton for this one. Here we have a milk carton. Again, probably a 1 liter carton. A thimble is what your mother or someone who's a seamstress, someone who sews might use. It's a little silver thing that you would put over top of your finger so that you don't poke yourself. It's very small, it just fits on the top of your finger. So I would probably use a centimeter cube. And an ice cream pail, probably larger. I would probably use a 1 liter carton. Here, you're going to explain whether you would use milliliters or liters to measure the capacity of each container. And then below, you're going to actually estimate the capacity of each container in milliliters or liters. So an approximate guess, trying to imagine how many 1 liter cartons or how many centimeter cubes it would take to fill each container. Press pause and go ahead. All right, so a flower pot, what would you use? Would you use milliliters or liters? Generally, flower pots that I'm thinking of are fairly large. I would probably use a liter. A small cup, like a cup that you would use for drinking, definitely less than a liter. I would probably use milliliters for that one. Estimating the capacity of each container. A lunch box, fairly large lunch box, I would say probably about 1.5 liters perhaps, 1 liter, something in there. And a coffee cup, maybe about 250 milliliters, something like that. And remember, you're more than welcome to use the centimeter cubes and kind of get a picture of how big that particular item might be. All right, you're going to go on to your concept practice. Estimating with reference for a liter. So these pages are focusing on a liter, page 149 and 150, numbers 1, 2, 4, 8, and 7. And estimating with reference for a milliliter, focusing on a milliliter, page 153, 154, numbers 1A, 3, 4, and 7. Remember, of course, if you have any questions, that you please ask.